Early life and family background. Ahmed Sékou Touré was born on January 9, 1922, in the town of Farana, located in the interior of Guinea, which at the time was part of French West Africa. He came from a family of great historical significance. He was a direct descendant of Sékou Touré, the famous West African ruler who fought fiercely against French colonial expansion in the late 19th century. Sékou Touré built one of the largest pre-colonial empires in the region before being defeated and captured by the French in 1898. This connection to Sékou Touré gave Ahmed Sékou Touré a strong sense of pride, identity, and resistance to colonial domination. His father, Alpha Touré, was a farmer, and his mother, Aminata Fadiga, was known for her leadership in the local community. He grew up in a modest environment, but was deeply influenced by stories of resistance and the importance of freedom, education, and early defiance. Touré attended primary school in Farana and later continued his education in Conakry, the capital of Guinea. However, in 1936, he was expelled from the École Georges Poiret for organizing and leading a student strike against colonial authorities. This incident was a defining moment. It revealed his rebellious character and his unwillingness to accept injustice, even at a young age. After leaving school, Touré educated himself through extensive reading and study. He also began working as a clerk and later as an employee at the postal services. His experiences as a worker in the colonial administration exposed him to the discrimination and hardships African employees faced under French rule, which reinforced his commitment to social justice. Rise in trade unionism. In the 1940s, during the wave of anti-colonial movements following World War II, Touré became actively involved in labor unions. In 1945, he co-founded the Union of Post and Telecommunications Workers in Guinea and emerged as one of its strongest voices. By the early 1950s, he was a leading figure in the labor movement, and in 1956, he was elected as the Secretary General of the General Union of Black African Workers, UGTAN. This was one of the most powerful trade unions in French-speaking Africa, uniting workers across multiple colonies. Touré's leadership skills and fiery speeches made him one of the most influential voices in the struggle against colonial exploitation. He used the trade union as a platform not only for workers' rights, but also for broader political mobilization against French domination. Political career and the PDG. Alongside his union activism, Touré became a leading figure in the Democratic Party of Guinea, PDG, which was part of the African Democratic Rally, RDA, a political law movement founded in 1946 by leaders such as Félix Houphouët-Boigny of Côte d'Ivoire. Touré quickly rose through the ranks of the PDG thanks to his charisma, his reputation as a defender of the working class, and his uncompromising stance against colonialism. By the mid-1950s, he had become the most popular political leader in Guinea. The 1958 referendum and the famous No, the defining moment of Touré's career, came in 1958. French President Charles de Gaulle offered France's African colonies a choice through a referendum. They could either join the French community, which meant semi-autonomy while still tied to France, or they could choose immediate independence, which would mean losing all French aid and support. While most African leaders chose to remain tied to France, Touré took a bold stand. He delivered a historic speech declaring, "We prefer poverty in freedom to riches in slavery." On September 28, 1958, Guinea voted overwhelmingly no, rejecting French control. This decision shocked France and the world. On October 2, 1958, Guinea officially declared its independence, becoming the first French colony in Africa to do so. In retaliation, France withdrew abruptly from Guinea. French administrators, teachers, doctors, engineers, and technicians left the country, sometimes destroying equipment, documents, and infrastructure. Guinea was left isolated, but the decision made Sékou Touré a symbol of African dignity and defiance. The first president of Guinea. On the day of independence, October 2, 1958, Sékou Touré became the first president of Guinea. The population celebrated him as a hero who had stood up to France when others did not. His presidency was initially marked by hope, optimism, and strong Pan-African ideals. Touré established a one-party state, with the PDG as the only legal political organization. He believed unity was essential to prevent division and to build a strong nation free from neo-colonial influence. Domestic policies and socialism. Touré's government adopted socialist policies. The state controlled most of the economy, including agriculture, trade, and industry. He sought to reduce Guinea's dependence on foreign powers by nationalizing resources and encouraging self-sufficiency. However, these policies often led to inefficiency, mismanagement, and corruption. Agricultural production declined, industries failed to grow, and Guinea's economy struggled. International relations. Touré positioned Guinea as a leader of the non-aligned movement and Pan-Africanism. He established close ties with the Soviet Union, China, and other socialist states, but he also interacted with Western powers when it suited Guinea's interests. He offered Guinea as a safe haven for African liberation movements, including Amilcar Cabral's PAIGC, Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde, ANC, South Africa, MPLA, Angola. In 1966, when Ghana's president, Kwame Nkrumah, was overthrown, Sékou Touré invited him to Guinea, gave him asylum, and symbolically declared him co-president of Guinea. This gesture reflected his deep commitment to African unity. Authoritarianism and repression. Despite his image as a freedom fighter, Sékou Touré's presidency became increasingly authoritarian. He believed that dissent was dangerous for national unity, and as a result, opposition was brutally suppressed. The Boiro camp, a prison in Conakry, became infamous for detaining political prisoners. Thousands of people accused of plotting against the regime were imprisoned, tortured, or executed. Fear, surveillance, and political purges marked his rule, especially from the late 1960s onward. This climate of repression caused many Guineans to flee the country, and it tarnished Touré's reputation. Later years and struggles. By the 1970s and 1980s, Guinea's economy was in deep crisis. State policies had failed to deliver prosperity, and ordinary people suffered from poverty, shortages, and repression. Nevertheless, Touré remained an important figure internationally. He continued to host liberation movements, participated in international diplomacy, and maintained his role as a symbol of African independence. In 1982, he was re-elected for another term, despite growing discontent at home. Illness and death. In March 1984, Touré traveled to the United States for medical treatment. He was admitted to the Cleveland Clinic in Ohio after suffering from serious heart problems. On March 26, 1984, Ahmed Sékou Touré died at the age of 62. His death shocked Guinea, as he had been the country's only president since independence. Only a few days after his death, the Guinean military staged a coup led by Colonel Lansana Conté, ending 26 years of PDG rule. Legacy. Sékou Touré remains a controversial figure in African history. On one hand, he is celebrated as a fearless nationalist, the man who said no to France, the pioneer who gave Guinea its independence, and a leader who supported African liberation across the continent. On the other hand, his rule is criticized for its authoritarianism, repression, and economic failures. Thousands of Guineans lost their lives or their freedom under his regime, and Guinea's development lagged behind many of its neighbors. Despite these contradictions, Sékou Touré's name remains engraved in African history as one of the boldest leaders of the independence era.